Hey everybody, we have two skills to do for homework. Um, Whenever you get this assignment, you'll still have time Friday to work on it. Doesn't need to be submitted till Sunday night. As long as it's done before you walk back into class, and sorry, not walk back into class, come back into class on Monday. It's totally fine. And we'll be doing a little bit of review of this on Friday's class so that if you have not yet got done the homework or got stuck on it, you'll get a little bit of extra review than just a video. First thing though, how do you measure an angle? And the answer is you measure angle in terms of rotation, in terms of how much an angle turns from its start to its finish. And it's measured in terms of geometry in degrees. You have learned about degrees, 90-degree angles, 180 degrees, 45 degrees. These are angle things that you've learned in grade school. Just to be clear, there are other ways to measure angles besides degrees. There's a very common type that you'll need to know next year in Algebra 2 Trig called radians. We're not going to talk about radians this year in geometry because radians are a lot more useful in circular rotation than they are in terms of regular visual angles that you see on flat surfaces and in three-dimensional surfaces. They're really only useful in rotation and circles. So that's a major part of trigonometry. It's not a major part of what we do in this class this year. Congruent angles, we saw the word congruent earlier with segments, and it's when segments were the same length, and we'd either have the same tick marks or we'd have the same number written on it or the same variables. Congruent angles are the same things. They measure, excuse me, my tablet's not writing as well as I like. They measure the same degree. Now, a lot of people at this point here think that the word congruent and the word equal and the word same are all the same word. Congruent means same measurement, but there's other things that you don't measure about objects that can be very different with congruent objects. They can be rotated differently. They can be turned and twisted. But if you measure them the same, then no matter what they are, you use the word congruent. So it's congruent has to do about how you measure them. It doesn't have to do about exactly the way they look. Things can look a little bit different and still be congruent as long as the amount you would measure with a ruler, or in this case a protractor, would be fine. All right, let's measure some angles here. Angle CAD. I trace it going from C to A to D. We can see this amount right here. It's very, very hard to see the protractor, but I'll zoom in a little bit. And you can see on the protractor, especially if you had your own protractor, this number here would be 180. This number here would be 0. This number here would be 50. And this number here would be 130. One of those four numbers is correct. Which of those four numbers is correct for angle CAD? The answer is a couple different ways you can do this. One is you can look at just the inside numbers and subtract them. 50 minus 0 is 50. One of the ways you can do it is look at just the outside numbers and subtract them. 180 minus 130 is 50. The best way to do it is start from 0 and go to that number. So whether you pick the top and subtract, the bottom and subtract, or look to where 0 is and go to the number that's at the end of the angle, either way, that's the way you'll read the protractor. And that's one of your two skills that you'll be learning here today. Angle BAE is next. This angle is totally my bae. Angle BAE. Anyways, we still have the numbers 0 and 180 on the left. They do differ. The number 0 is on the outside now. Try to get this to work. Sorry, having some problems with my tablet. Try again. 0, 180. And if you look at this one here, it's hard to see, but the red line goes right between 70 and 80. So it's between 70 and 80. And so if it's perfectly between 70 and 80, the best answer would be 75. And then it's also between 110 and 100. Okay, but how do you tell? Why did you pick 75 and not 105? And the answer is start at 0. 0 is the outside number. Go to where the red line ends. It ends between the top numbers, the outside numbers, 70 to 80. So we pick 75. Or you could just do the subtraction method. 75 minus 0, 75. You could also do 180 minus 105. It would also get you 75. BAC, let me trace it here. Notice it starts on the outside number of 0. It ends here on an outside number of 130. So just like the blue angle, BAC also is near the 50 and 130, but because it uses the outside number starting at 0, you get 130. Or just subtract the outside numbers. 130 minus 0 is 130. Or subtract the inside numbers. 180 minus 50 is 130. Now finally, when you get to angles on the inside, like this purple angle here, CAE in the middle, the only way to do that is subtraction. And again, it doesn't matter if you subtract the outside numbers, like 130 minus 75. This comes out to be 55. Or you could subtract the inside numbers. 105 minus 50 also gives you 55. The subtraction method's probably the best method to use, but if you have a protractor in your hand, knowing the 0 method is really important also. Anyways, this blue angle that's 50 degrees, angle CAD, what is it congruent to? Well, it needs to be congruent to something else that's also 50 degrees. That equal sign with the little squiggle, the little tilde on top means congruent. What else is 50 degrees? And you take a look, not the red angle, that's 75, not the green angle, that's 130, not the purple angle, that's close, but it's 55. And you look, and then eventually you look over here on the top right, and you're like, oh, look at that, that's angle F. Angle F and angle CAD are congruent because they're both 50, because their measurements are both 50. Look at these little M's that I have on this last line. You're not going to have to probably ever write this yourself, but you should know what they are. When you see a little M before the angle symbol, that means you're talking about a number answer. When you don't see the little M, that means you're talking about the letters. And when you do see the little M, it means you're talking about the degrees, the numbers. All right, that's one topic. You're going to have to use the subtraction method and learn how to read a protractor. And then after you do that, you're going to have to learn how to classify angles. Classify angles is simply one vocab word of these 4 words below. Every angle can be classified as either acute, right, obtuse, or straight. The one that you probably know the best in terms of from a previous class would be the word right. Right angles are equal to 90 degrees. How do they look? Something like this, where one of the lines is horizontal, one of the lines is vertical, one of the rays. I should not use the word lines. Just to be clear though, you could have both of them bent a little bit and that's also okay too. There's a little symbol to make sure you know something's 90 degrees. And that little symbol is a box. So those are what right angles, 90-degree angles look like. Straight angles would be twice as big, and they would be exactly equal to 180 degrees. So straight angles don't look in any unusual way. They come out to be 180 and they look something like that, whether they have that blue mark or not. Acute angles then versus obtuse angles are numbers different than 90 and 180. And acute angles are smaller angles. Oh, they're so small, they're acute. Between 0 degrees and 90 degrees. They're not going to be as small as 0, they're not going to be negatives. There's no negative angles in geometry. When you start moving into trigonometry and you start talking about rotating around circles, sure, you can have angles that are less, that 0 degrees and negative degrees, but not when you're talking about visual pictures. Acute angles will look smaller. They can look very small. They can look somewhat small. They can look very much close to 90, but not quite. And just to give you an idea of how many degrees these would be, this is about a 30-degree angle, give or take. This is about a 45-degree angle. This is about a 75-degree angle. You're going to have to estimate at some point in time. And when you estimate, if it's closer to being so tiny you can't see it, like the 30-degree angle, it'll be a smaller number. If it's very close to the right angle, it'll be a larger number, like 70, 75, 80, something like that. Since acute angles are between 0 and 90, obtuse angles are between 90 and 180. So they'll be bigger. They might be just slightly bigger than a right angle, just a little bit more open, or they could be quite a bit open, or they could be pretty close to straight, but not quite. And just giving some estimates of where these are, this is about 120 degrees. It's not very close to 90, it's sort of close to 90. This is about 135 degrees. This is about 150 degrees, give or take, to see what things are like. All right, what's your assignment going to have to be here? Your assignment's going to be two different things, starting with protractors. Can you use the subtraction method? Look at the numbers on the protractor. I know what's on the screen right now. You can barely see those fuzzy numbers on the protractor, but you can see, like, is a line going right through 50 or 130? Is a line going right between 70 and 80? So you'd have to pick 75, or between 110 and 100. The best method uses the subtraction method. So like you see 50 and 0 on the bottom part of the angle, subtract them and you get 50. Or you see 130 and 180 on the top part of the protractor, subtract the numbers 180 minus 130 to get a positive number of 50. You shouldn't get negative numbers. So first thing you'll do is use the subtraction method of protractors. Second thing you do will be estimate which number makes the most sense. So if it looks acute, pick a number like 30 or 45 or 75, or some number of your own. If it looks right, pick the number 90. If it looks obtuse, pick a number like 120, 135, 150, or pick a number that you think's better. And if it's a straight angle, pick 180. And that's all you'll have to do on your IXL. That's for homework. Again, Friday by the end of school would be great. You want to do it over the weekend instead, that's totally fine. Make sure it's done by the time you come in Monday for class. Take care. Please let me know if you have any other questions, and I will talk with you later.